What's up, THS? I'm Mrs. Smith from the library. Our theme this week is Little Shorties, and these are my top three. My books for this week are collections of short stories that have been sourced from some of our favorite YA lit authors and then grouped together by theme. And you know I love that. I want to get started with Saundra Mitchell's All Out, the no longer secret stories of queer teens throughout the ages. Some of you really enjoy historical fiction, and if that's you, then I think you're going to love the stories in this book. What the authors have done is they've taken different time periods, different settings, different genres, and they have retold these stories, bringing the adventures, the tragedies, the romance, the life experiences of teenagers throughout the LGBTQ plus spectrum to the forefront. I want to tell you about just a few of the stories in here that are really good. My absolute favorite is a Robin Hood remix called Every Shade of Red that was written by Elliot Wake. The ending on this one is so good. There's also a story called The Sweet Trade, and it's written by Natalie C. Parker. Now, she's a local author, and she wrote the Seafire trilogy. Some of you have read those, and it's about a gang of female pirates. This particular story, it reminds me of The Awakening, and I know some of you 10th graders read The Storm and Desiree's Baby. I think this particular story pushes that narrative further, like where it should be. And I just like it better. The End of the World as We Know It takes place on New Year's Eve in 1999, and I just want to say that it kind of hurts my feelings that that is being included as a period piece, but we'll move on from that. This is a really good story about a teenage girl who's just like really intuitive and insightful, and she loves 90s alternative music, and she's also finding out what else she loves. So those stories and others are all available in this collection called All Out, edited by Saundra Mitchell. Book number 2 is an anthology edited by Lamar Giles, and in it he's brought together 12 great authors and their diverse stories for this collection called Fresh Ink. Now, the thing about these little shorties is that they are short for real. Like, look how skinny that book is. Inside this tiny little book are 12 different short stories, an introduction, an afterword, and the author bios. And they all fit in this narrow little thing. So these are quick stories. You're going to just fly through them. I like to think of them like hors d'oeuvres. They have to put a lot of flavor into one tiny bite, and that's exactly what these authors have done. The first story in this collection is by Jason Reynolds, and if you're watching this video, you must know by now that I love Jason Reynolds, and I really love this little bite-sized love story called Eraser Tattoo that he wrote. Walter Dean Myers is the author of Monster, which a lot of you read, I think, in the 8th grade. And he has a one-act play in here called Tags, and it's so good. I can't even tell you what it's about. I can't give you the setup. You just have to read it. There is another author in here named Skylar Baylor, and Skylar is the first openly trans athlete to compete in NCAA Division I swimming. Well, any sport, Division I, and not just any Division I school, but Harvard, so kind of a big deal. And his story is really personal, and it takes place in a locker room. Actually, all the stories in this collection are really personal, and you can read them by placing a hold on Lamar Giles Fresh Ink. A lot of the stories that we love follow kind of a familiar pattern where you have like a good guy or girl who has to rise to greatness and persist against difficult odds to beat the bad guy. And when they do, the world and the hero are better for it. Well, none of that happens in my top book for this week, which is edited by Ameriie. It's called Because You Love to Hate Me, 13 Tales of Villainy. Because You Love to Hate Me gives you the origin stories of some of classic literature's most infamous villains, and it's all from the perspective of the bad guy. And I should tell you that the Ameriie who brought these stories together is the same Ameriie who in 2005 released one of the boppiest bops of all time that we've been listening to on the interlude to this video. Her short story in this book is called Jack, and it's based off Jack and the Beanstalk. And the giant, in this case, is a giantess. And we see her perspective of defending her family's livelihood against a career criminal. There's also a short story called Gwen, Art, and Lance, and it's based off of Camelot. And this story is told in a unique way. So it's text messages. Basically, it's like Gwen hands you her iPhone, and we get to see the text messages that she's been sending Art. That would be King Arthur. And then the text messages that she's been sending Lancelot. Very messy. Two other really good stories in here I want to tell you about. The first one is a Medusa origin story by Cindy Pond that had me in my feelings for real. And then there is a sea witch story that takes the Little Mermaid and Ursula's character, except for that's not her name in this one, but it imagines if when she was young she had a similar situation as the Little Mermaid, and instead of choosing to turn into a human, she turns back into a mermaid and lets her love interest die. Really, really good stuff in there. One more thing. So there are companion essays for each of the short stories that are written by YouTube book reviewers. Basically, they just go into depth about why we need monsters or bad guys in literature, and what these particular authors have done to sprinkle something a little unexpected on their stories. And you can check those unexpected stories out in this book, Because You Love to Hate Me, 13 Tales of Villainy, edited by Ameriie. Short stories probably deserve a little bit more library love than they get, unfortunately, because they're just such a great way to sample or introduce yourself to new authors. You could make a 30 or 40-minute investment in a short story and use that to help you decide if you want to then read a novel by this author. Or perhaps the reverse is true for you. You might be a die-hard Melinda Lowe reader, or you're in the Adam Silvera fan club and you're waiting for their new novel to be released. These little short stories are great in-betweeners to tide you over until that happens. Now, there's a good chance that one of your favorite authors is in one of these short story collections that I've talked to you about, or in another short story collection I have available down here, and I'd love to help you find that. Send me an email or use the library resources and I'll get that book to you ASAP. I will be back only one more time this school year with another book talk for you from our library. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.